Nathaniel, and today in Global Education Zone channel and English class, we'll be talking about I will giving you a complete guide to your JAMB physics, JAMB English language examination. So, without wasting much time, let's delve into the matter at hand. Now, basically, for your JAMB examination, there are three basic parts where you need to answer questions. So, the first part you need to answer questions is your comprehension and summary. And then the next part is your lexis and structure. Then the last part is your oral forms. So, for your comprehension and summary, there are key tips for you to succeed in your comprehension and summary. For your comprehension and summary, you have to make sure you read the passage carefully. Read the passage once, then read the question, then go back to read the passage again. So after reading the question, to give you a sense of direction and guidance, to show you why you should and which places to focus on the passage. Then for your summary, you will need to have to pay attention to the key ideas in the passage so that you don't miss the real answer. So, but for your JAM, you also have what is called closed tests. So, and those closed tests are those filling the gaps. So, and they are the same thing. You have to be able to understand the passage. If possible, read the closed test through, and then when you have finished reading it, you can now check the options so that you will know the alternatives. You can know what the passage is talking about before you start picking your options. So, and then section B of your exam will be on lexis and structure. So, and lexis and structure is basically on how you use different words in different vocabulary. So like lexis on building, lexis on medicine, so that the words associated with building, the words associated with medicine, and so on. So they also come out in JAMB, and you will also be asked to answer such questions. So, and most of the time, there are examples of your closed tests. They come with filling the gaps questions. Then we also have oral forms. Oral forms is basically your oral English, your stress placement, and all the rest. So let's talk about in detail your syllabus for and your topics where you need to be focusing on. So the first one we're talking about is grammatical structure. So you need to understand what grammatical structure means. Grammatical structure is basically the structure of a word, the structure of a phrase, the structure of a clause, the structure of a morpheme, the structure of the sentence. So you have a morpheme first, and a morpheme is basically the simplest unit of sentence, something like the simplest unit of sentence that can make sense. Like pen is a morpheme. When you put a pen, you put a you have already put an a determiner. Something like an article, you put an article before the pen, so it becomes a word. So then after word we have phrases, and phrases are basically a group of words without a finite verb. And then after phrases we have clauses. Clauses are a group of words that have a finite verb. So then we have sentences. Sentences are a combination of clauses and phrases. And then important, we have different types of clauses, and we have main clause and subordinating clause. So, and this video should also help you in your WAEC examination, because you will also be dealing with all these concepts in your WAEC examination. So that's your grammatical structure. You need to understand phrases, majorly phrases and clauses, and then sentences. So that is how your grammatical structure goes. Then we have parts of speech. Under your parts of speech, you will have to answer questions that are related to the nature and the function of different parts of speech. So parts of speech include: number one is noun, number two we have pronouns, three we have adjectives, four we have adverbs, five we have verbs, six we have conjunctions, seven we have preposition, and then lastly eight we have interjections. So noun, a noun is basically the name of a person, name or thing, animal, object, or whatever it is. And a noun is basically something that answers a question. Like if you say who ate the food, and in now you use a noun to answer, like who ate the food? Toby. Toby is a noun. Toby ate the food. So now also answer why question, who question, whom question, why question, and all the rest of which questions. Nouns answer that questions. So all the and nouns function as subject of the verb, object of the verb, subject complement, object complement, complement with preposition, and even appositive. So we'll talk about those. We've talked about those. I've made a video on that, on nouns, in this channel, so you can check that out. Then we also have pronouns. Pronouns are basically words that substitute nouns, and they have first person pronouns like I and we. We have second person pronouns like he, like you. Second person pronouns is you. Then we have third person pronouns which we have, and we have singular and plural. Like the first person singular is I, first person plural is we, then the second person singular and plural they are both you. Then we have the third person singular, which is he, she, it. Then third person plural is they. So all these and more of these, they are all the parts of pronouns. Then we have types of pronouns. We have relative pronouns, we have indefinite pronouns, we have reflexive pronouns, all the rest. So all these ones, you will need to understand and understand which the difference between parts of speech. And most of the time in examinations, it's often difficult for students to distinguish the difference between one part of speech and the other, so that you will not be calling an adjective an adverb. So you will need to understand what part of this is, so that you will be able to know the properties of each part of speech, so you can differentiate the pronoun from a noun, an adverb from a verb, an adjective from an adverb. So then we have adverbs. Adverbs are basically words that describe verbs and verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. So if you say he walks slowly, that slowly is like an adverb. The slowly is describing how it works, and that walk is a verb. So in that sentence I just said, the slowly is describing the verb, and it's telling you that that is how it works. So adverbs basically they modify verbs, they modify adjectives, and if you say he is so fat, that so is like a modification of the fat, and that fat is an adjective. So an adjective, going on to adjectives are words that describe nouns, they qualify nouns, they qualify pronouns, and they qualify several other prepositions, several other yes. So now those adjectives, they include he is fat, ugly, big, strong, white, beautiful, and all the rest. So those ones they are like qualifying nouns, and those ones are qualifying adjectives. Then we have adjectives that come before nouns and adjectives that comes after nouns. So some of them have predicative functions and some have attributive functions. If you say that this is the fat man, when the adjective comes before the man, it's like a predicative function. It's like an attributive function, sorry. So but when it comes after the man is fat. So the adjective is forming the predicate of the sentence. So that is how it is. So those adjectives, those predicative adjectives, they can also be known as the subject complement. So they are like the predicates. They are what is telling us more about the subject. So this is not a. I'm not trying to talk about much about grammar, but I'm just giving you the current overview. Then we have adverbs, we have verbs, we have adjectives, verbs. So we have prepositions, conjunctions. Conjunctions are basically linking words. Then prepositions too are connecting words. Then we have interjections. Interjections are basically words that used to express surprise, anger, and all the rest. So interjections, that's all for parts of speech. There are 8 parts of speech, just in case you want to remember that. Then we have synonyms, antonyms, affixes, homonyms, question tags, direct and indirect speech. So synonyms is basically when they ask you what's the synonym of a word, it's basically a word that can replace that word as used in the context. And what is context? Context is basically the way a word is used in a passage, in a phrase, or in a particular place, in a particular sentence. So basically you have to pay attention to context, because context determines how and why you will use a word and how you will not use that word. So now if we talk about it, it will say the town is peaceful. Now this peaceful, and they ask us to look for a summary of this peaceful. We could say there are 2 different words that we can also use for summary of peaceful. You can say peaceful can mean calm, peaceful can mean quiet. But you cannot say yes, peaceful can mean calm, peaceful can mean quiet. But then you cannot say quiet here, because you don't know how much what that peaceful actually means. But it means that when everything is calm, you understand. So that means that peaceful will function as a calm. You can more likely to use calm in that sentence instead of quiet. Peaceful does not necessarily mean quiet in that context. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that if you have a word in the passage, you have to read the sentence properly to know which one will fit. So there are always infinite number of synonyms for a word, but the particular synonym that will fit in has to fit into the context of the passage. Then we have antonyms. Antonyms are opposite in meaning: ugly, beautiful, strong, weak, and all the rest. So they're like words and opposites. So and then we have affixes. Affixes are divided into prefixes and suffixes. And then you might have to work on affixes in your affix knowledge in your stress, so that you'll be able to understand where the stress will be placed. Because affixes don't affect the placement of stress. So anytime you see a word and there's a lot of prefixes, So something like if you have preconditionally, preconditionally. Now this pre is called a prefix. Then this condition, this ali is called a suffix. So any affix that comes before the word is called a prefix, and any affix that comes after the word is called a suffix. So and this prefix and suffix, they don't affect the stress placement. If I say condition, now my stress is condition. My stress is at the D. If I say preconditional, so my stress is still on the D, even when I put the prefix or where I remove it. So that is what you understand for your stress. So and then we have homonyms. Homonyms are basically words that have either the same spelling or the same pronunciation. And when they have the same spelling, they are called homographs. When they have the same pronunciation, they are called homophones. So we have question tags. Question tags, you should be able to answer question tags like he did it, didn't he? Yes, he did. So those didn't he, hasn't she, didn't we? So they have you have to be very careful. They have their different combinations where you need to understand. Then we have direct and indirect speech. Also, that's also known as active and passive voice. So you need to understand that too. Then phrases and clauses. I've talked about that. We have noun phrase, we have adjective phrase. We also have noun clauses, adjective clauses. We have adverbial clauses, adverbial phrases. So and all these are also when we have adverbial phrases, we can also refer to them as adverbial linkers. So those linkers, they are connecting parts of the sentence together. Like he ate calmly. That calmly is kind of like a phrase in Indian, and it's also an adverbial linker. So and so on and so forth. But just remember that a phrase has no finite verb, while a clause has a finite verb. Then I've talked about comprehension and summary. And in comprehension, always remember that you have to read the passage carefully and understand what they are trying to ask you to say, ask you to do. So in comprehension, you need to be able to understand the passage in the mind of the writer. You need to understand what is the mood of the writer, because there are different types of questions they can ask in comprehension. They can ask you question based on knowledge, question based on the fact in the passage, question based on grammatical functions and names of different parts of the passage. So and also there's a video in this channel I've made based on comprehensions to teach you, to guide you for comprehension. You can check that out. And there's also a video I've made in this channel based on summary to guide you in your summary answering. So you can also check that out. So basically, next we also have summary. And your summary, there's a video I've made on this channel based on summary. You can check that out. I've given some tips for your summary, and but in your summary you have to make sure you can capture the main idea of the sentence, of the paragraph, of whatever element is in the passage. So moving on, we have essay writing. So in essay writing is not really a part of JAMB, it's only a part of WAEC. So we're not talking about it in detail here, but in another video where I'll talk specifically on WAEC, I'll give a talk on essay writing. There are 4 different types of essay. There are descriptive essay, there are expository essay, there are argumentative essay, and there are narrative essays. So those 4 different types of essay, they have their different nature and the way you approach them. So and basically we'll talk about that in another video. Then we have idioms and idiomatic expressions, figures of speech, and this is where most students usually have issues in WAEC and JAMB, most especially JAMB, because most of the time JAMB always wants to test your knowledge of idiomatic expressions. If they give you a word, and you cannot interpret those idioms literally, so you have to interpret them figuratively. So and then we have figures of speech. Yes, figures of speech. We have where you have to identify the figures of speech. It can also come out in your English. Then we have oral English, and then we have stress. So before I end this video, I want to give you two principal tips in stress. So in your stress, always remember that any words ending in ION, IC, IAL, and IAN, they have their stress fixed at the second to the last. Then any words ending in ATE, AL, CAL, TY, PHY, GY, they have their stress placed in the third to the last. So example of that one, TION is education. So education has its K, has its stress at the education. So that K is like the second to the last. Then if we have something like geographically. So those LY, yes, that's LY. It's kind of like, okay, geography. Let's Let's use geography. So now that geography has a stress in that geography. So that geography is the third to the last of the sentence. So and then any verb that is ending in ate has a stress in the last syllable, and then any noun ending in ism has a stress in the first syllable. So you can go and find out more stress patterns and more stress rules, so that you'll be able to increase your repertoire and your wide knowledge for your examination in JAMB English. But to cap everything up, I wish you success, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe this video, and don't forget to focus on each of the parts of the sections I've talked about in this video. Thank you for watching.